Before we get into this story, I need you to do something for me. If you're watching from Louisiana, especially South Louisiana, hit that subscribe button right now, and I mean right now, because what I'm about to tell you might explain things you've seen on Highway 1 late at night. Things you thought were tricks of the light or exhaustion from driving. Drop a comment telling me where you're from, and if you've ever driven Highway 1 between Thibodaux and Golden Meadow after midnight. If you have, you know there's something wrong with that stretch of road. You felt it. That like button? Smash it if you want to hear the truth about why people keep disappearing on that highway. Because the official reports, the ones that blame drunk driving or mechanical failure, they're all lies. Every single one of them. My name is Sheriff Ray Boudreau. I've been wearing this badge in Lafourche Parish for 16 years. Before that, I was a deputy in Jefferson Parish, and before that, I was just another kid from Chalmette trying to make something of himself. I thought I'd seen everything. Drug deals gone wrong in the 9th Ward, domestic violence calls that ended in murder, bodies pulled from the bayou after Mardi Gras. Louisiana has a way of showing you the worst of humanity, and I thought I was numb to it. I was wrong. This story starts on September 12th, 2023. It was a Tuesday, unseasonably hot even for Louisiana in September, the kind of heat where the asphalt sweats and the air conditioning in your cruiser can't quite keep up. I was finishing up my shift, looking forward to getting home to my wife Marie and cracking open a cold Abita when the call came through. "Dispatch, this is Unit 7. Deputy Chen's voice crackled through the radio. "I need assistance on Highway 1, mile marker 47. We've got a vehicle in distress, possible water on the roadway." I grabbed my radio. "Chen, this is Sheriff Boudreau." "What do you mean, water on the roadway? There hasn't been rain in 3 days." "Sir, I don't know how else to explain it. There's water on the highway, a lot of it. And there's a car, it's partially submerged." I felt that familiar tingle at the base of my skull, the one that tells you something isn't right. Highway 1 runs through Lafourche Parish like a spine, connecting the barrier islands to civilization. It's flat, built on elevated roadbed to prevent flooding. Even during hurricanes, Highway 1 doesn't flood unless the storm surge is catastrophic. I'm on my way. ETA 10 minutes. I flipped on my lights and headed south. The sun was setting, turning the sky that particular shade of orange and purple you only see in Louisiana, where the air is so thick with humidity it bends light in strange ways. The rice fields on either side of the highway were turning gold, and the egrets were settling in for the night. Mile marker 47 was in the middle of nowhere, between two small communities that barely qualified as towns. As I approached, I could see Chen's unit, lights flashing, and another car, a civilian vehicle with its flashers on. But what caught my attention was the water. Chen hadn't been exaggerating. There was water on the highway, a lot of it. Yet, it covered both lanes for about 200 feet, dark and still like a pond. In the middle of it, maybe 50 feet from the shoulder, was a car. A late-model Honda Accord, blue, with water up to its windows. The headlights were on, cutting through the murky water like searchlights. I parked behind Chen's cruiser and got out. The air smelled wrong, not like swamp water or bayou, but like something older. Salt and decay, and something I couldn't quite identify. Chen was standing at the edge of the water, shining his flashlight across it. He was young, maybe 25, and this was probably the weirdest thing he'd encountered in his 2 years on the force. "Sheriff," he said as I approached, "I don't understand this. The water just appeared. I was driving north about 20 minutes ago and the road was clear. Came back south and this was here. Where's the driver?" "That's the thing," he pointed toward the submerged car. "There's someone in there. I can see movement. But when I tried to wade in, the water, it's deep. Way deeper than it looks. I went in waist deep and still couldn't touch bottom. I looked at the water. It was perfectly still, no ripples, no current. Just dark, reflective water sitting on a highway that should be dry. "Call for backup," I told Chen, "and get the fire department out here with their water rescue equipment." "I'm going in. Sir, I don't think that's—" I didn't wait for him to finish. I stepped into the water and immediately understood what he meant. The first step seemed normal, water up to my ankles. But the second step, the bottom dropped away. Not gradually, but suddenly. I was waist deep, then chest deep, and I was only 3 feet from the shoulder. The water was cold. Not cool like bayou water in September, but cold like winter ocean. It soaked through my uniform immediately, and I felt the weight of it pulling me down. My duty belt, my gun, my radio, everything suddenly felt heavier. I pushed forward, moving toward the car. The water was so dark I couldn't see my own legs, couldn't see the bottom, couldn't see anything below the surface, just that impenetrable blackness. The only light came from the car's headlights and my flashlight, which I held above the water. As I got closer, I could see the driver more clearly. A woman, maybe 30, with dark hair plastered to her face. She was pounding on the window, mouth open in what should have been a scream, but I couldn't hear anything. The water seemed to swallow sound. I reached the car and tried the door handle. Locked. The woman inside was looking at me with terrified eyes, still pounding on the glass. I gestured for her to unlock the door, but she just kept hitting the window over and over like she couldn't see me. I tried my baton against the window. Nothing. The glass wouldn't even crack. I hit it harder, putting all my strength into it, but it was like hitting bulletproof glass. That's when I noticed the water level inside the car. It was rising, not slowly, but visibly. It was already up to the woman's chest, and as I watched, it reached her neck. She tilted her head back, trying to keep her face above water, but it kept rising. "I'm going to break the window," I shouted, even though I knew she probably couldn't hear me. "Get ready to swim out." I pulled my service weapon and aimed at the window, but before I could fire, I felt something grab my leg. Not a hand. Not anything I could identify, just pressure, like the water itself had solidified around my calf. I looked down, but I couldn't see anything through the murky water. The grip tightened, and I felt myself being pulled down. I grabbed onto the car's side mirror, holding on as whatever had me tried to drag me under. The woman inside was completely submerged now, her face pressed against the window, eyes wide and staring at me. Chen appeared beside me, also waist deep in water. He grabbed my arm and pulled, but the thing holding my leg was stronger. I felt my fingers slipping from the mirror, felt the water rising up my chest. And then I saw them. Faces in the water, not clear, not distinct, but there. Dozens of them. Hundreds, maybe. Pale shapes just below the surface, mouths open, arms reaching up. Not trying to pull me down, I realized. Trying to push me up, trying to help. The pressure on my leg released suddenly, and Chen and I fell backward, splashing in the water. I scrambled to my feet, pulling Chen with me, and we waded as fast as we could back to the shoulder. We collapsed on the dry pavement, breathing hard. I looked back at the car. The woman was gone. The headlights were still on, but the vehicle was completely submerged now, the water up to the roof. "Did you see them?" Chen asked, his voice shaking. "In the water. All those people. I saw them." We sat there catching our breath as more sirens approached. Fire trucks, ambulances, more patrol cars. The cavalry was arriving. But as I stared at that impossible water sitting on a highway that should be dry, I knew they wouldn't be able to help. The fire department tried. God knows they tried. They brought their water rescue equipment, their divers, their boats. But the water was too deep, too dark. The divers couldn't find the bottom. The boats couldn't navigate, their motors dying the moment they entered the water. and every attempt to reach the submerged car failed. After an hour, Fire Chief LeBlanc pulled me aside. "Ray, this doesn't make any sense. That water, it's not normal. My divers say it feels wrong, like it's pushing back against them. And the temperature, it's near freezing down there. In September, in Louisiana, I know. We need to drain it somehow, but I don't know where it came from or where it would go. There's no storm surge, no broken water main. It's just here. What time did this start?" I asked. "What time did your divers first enter the water?" He checked his watch. "About 40 minutes ago." "Why? What time exactly?" He pulled out his phone, scrolling through his messages. "First diver entered at 3:17 a.m. We got the call at 2:47, arrived at 3:10, started water operations at 3:17. 3:17. Something about that time felt significant, but I couldn't place it. We kept trying until dawn. As the sun rose over the flat Louisiana landscape, turning the water from black to gray, we had to accept that we weren't going to recover the woman's body. The water wasn't receding, the car wasn't accessible, and whatever was down there didn't want us getting any closer. At 6:30 a.m., I called off the search. We'd bring in specialized equipment during daylight, maybe pump the water out somehow, but for now, we needed to secure the scene and figure out what the hell was going on. As the fire trucks packed up and the ambulances left, I stood at the edge of the water with Chen. The morning sun was glinting off the surface, making it look almost normal, like a pond or a flooded field. But I knew better. "Sheriff," Chen said quietly, "those faces in the water. Who were they?" "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." I spent the rest of that morning making calls to the Louisiana Department of Transportation, asking about water main breaks, to the National Weather Service, asking about flash flooding, to FEMA, asking about levee breaches. Every answer was the same. No. 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 There was no reason for water to be on Highway 1 at mile marker 47. Around noon, I got a call from my wife Marie. "Ray, where are you? You were supposed to be home hours ago." "I'm still at the scene. We've got a situation." "What kind of situation?" I hesitated. "How do you explain impossible water on a dry highway? A woman drowning in her car in the middle of a road? Faces in the water that shouldn't exist? Just a complicated rescue operation. I'll explain when I get home. Ray." Her voice had that tone, the one that said she knew I was holding something back. "Be careful. Always am, Cher." I hung up and turned back to the water. In the daylight, I could see it more clearly. The edges were perfectly defined, like someone had drawn a line on the asphalt and said, "Water goes here, no further." The surface was mirror smooth, reflecting the sky. And in that reflection, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The reflection wasn't quite right. The sky was clear, blue with a few scattered clouds. But the reflection showed dark storm clouds, the kind you see during a hurricane. And in the corner of the reflected sky, I could see what looked like a clock tower, partially submerged. I blinked, and the reflection was normal again. Clear sky, no tower. Chen had gone to get food, leaving me alone with the water. I knelt down at the edge, careful not to touch it, and looked more closely. The surface was so still it seemed frozen. I picked up a small stone and tossed it in. The stone didn't splash. It didn't sink. It simply disappeared the moment it touched the surface, like it had passed through a portal instead of water. Sheriff Boudreaux. I jumped, nearly falling into the water. Standing behind me was an old woman I didn't recognize. She was maybe 80, with dark skin and white hair pulled back in a bun. She wore a simple house dress and carried a worn canvas bag. "Ma'am, you shouldn't be here. This is a restricted area. I know what this is," she said. her accent thick Cajun. My grand-mère told me about this water, said it comes every few years, always at 3:17, always hungry. What do you mean, hungry? She gestured toward the water. This is the Drowning Road, Sheriff. Been here since Katrina, since the water took so many. They still drowning, you understand? Still calling for help, and sometimes the water listens. Brings them back. But not the way they were. Ma'am, I don't understand. August 29th, 2005, 3:17 in the morning. That's when the levees broke in New Orleans, when the water came rushing in and took 1,800 souls. They drowned in their cars, in their houses, in the streets, and some of them, they're still drowning, still trapped in that moment. And this water, she pointed to the highway, this is where they come to finish dying. I stared at her. That's impossible. You saw the faces, yes? In the water? I nodded slowly. Those are the drowned, Sheriff. They're trying to save people. Trying to pull them to safety. But they don't remember they're dead. They think they're still drowning. So when they grab you, they pull you down. Not to kill you, to save you. But the result is the same. The woman in the car is with them now. One more drowned soul, stuck in 3:17 a.m., August 29th, 2005, forever. How do I stop this? How do I save people? The old woman shook her head. You can't stop it, can only manage it. The water comes every night at 3:17, stays until 3:24. 7 minutes. 7 minutes to pull people out before they join the drowned. 7 minutes to fight against souls who think they're helping. Every night since I noticed it 6 months ago. Other people don't see it, don't understand it. They drive through thinking it's fog or their eyes playing tricks. But people who stop, people who try to help, they get taken. Why didn't you report this? Who would believe an old woman talking about drowned souls and haunted water? You don't even believe me now, and you've seen it with your own eyes. She was right. Part of me wanted to dismiss this as grief-induced delusion, exhaustion, stress. But I'd seen those faces. Felt something grab my leg. Watched a woman drown in a sealed car on a dry highway. What do I do? I asked. Tonight, 3:17, you come back, alone. Watch the water. And when someone gets trapped, you have 7 minutes to pull them out. That's all. 7 minutes before they're gone forever. And if I can't pull them out in time, then they join the drowned. And tomorrow night, when the water comes back, they'll be down there too. Trying to help. Trying to save people. Making everything worse. The old woman reached into her bag and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. She handed it to me. What's this? Insurance. Open it when you need it. Not before. She turned to leave, then paused. Sheriff, my name is Marguerite Thibodeau. My grandson, Marcel, he drowned in Katrina. He was trying to rescue people from the 9th Ward. Boat overturned. They never found his body. If you see him down there, if you see a young man with a saint's tattoo on his shoulder, tell him his mère loves him. Tell him he can rest now. Before I could respond, she was walking away, moving with surprising speed for her age. I called after her, but she didn't turn back. By the time I got to my cruiser to follow, she had disappeared. I unwrapped the cloth. Inside was an old key, brass and tarnished, with a water-stained tag that read, St. Louis Cathedral, 1811. I had no idea what it was for, but something told me Marguerite knew more than she was saying. I spent the rest of the day preparing. I couldn't tell my deputies what was really happening. They'd think I'd lost my mind. So I told them we had a potential road hazard that appeared at night, probably related to an underground aquifer or something. I ordered the road closed from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. every night until further notice. Chen volunteered to stay with me. He's a good kid, and he'd seen the faces too. He deserved to know what was happening. At 2:30 a.m., we parked at mile marker 47. The road was empty, dark except for our headlights. The air was still and heavy, the way it gets before a storm. Except there was no storm coming. The weather service had promised clear skies all week. "What are we waiting for?" Chen asked. "You'll see. At 3:15, the temperature dropped. Not gradually, but suddenly. One minute it was 80 degrees, the next it felt like 50. Chen and I both saw our breath in the air. What the hell? At 3:16, the smell changed. That same odor from the night before, salt and decay and something underneath it. Something like fear. At 3:17 exactly, the water came. Not slowly, not like flooding. It was just suddenly there, covering 200 feet of highway and water that was already several feet deep. In the middle of it, illuminated by our headlights, was a car. Not the Honda from last night, a different car. A red Camry with Louisiana plates, and inside I could see someone moving. The 7 minutes had started. Chen and I grabbed our equipment and waded in. The water was just as cold, just as deep as before. But this time I was ready. I had rope, flotation devices, and a crowbar to break the window. As we moved toward the car, I saw them again. The faces in the water. Dozens of them, pale and desperate. But this time I looked closer. Some were young, some old. Some were wearing Mardi Gras beads. Some were in pajamas. Some were in business suits. All of them were reaching up, not with malice but with urgency. Like they were trying to help, trying to save us from drowning. Except we weren't drowning, they were. We reached the car. The driver was a man, maybe 50, pounding on the window just like the woman last night. The water inside was already up to his chest. I raised the crowbar and smashed it against the window. This time, the glass cracked. I hit it again, and the window shattered. Water poured out and the man lunged for the opening. Chen and I grabbed him and pulled, fighting against the weight of the water and the pressure of those faces below, all trying to push us, help us, save us. We pulled the man free just as I felt that pressure on my leg again. But this time I was ready. I kicked hard and the grip loosened. Chen and I dragged the man toward the shoulder, wading through water that seemed to be getting deeper, colder, more insistent. We reached dry land at 3:23, 1 minute to spare. The man collapsed on the pavement, coughing up water that smelled like salt and death. He was alive. We'd saved him. At 3:24, the water disappeared. Not drained away, not receded, just gone. 1 second it was there, covering the highway. The next, the road was dry. The car sat on the asphalt, windows shattered, interior soaked. But no water. The man looked at us with terrified eyes. "What the hell was that? What just happened?" "Sir, you need to calm down. You're safe now. You had an accident." An accident? The water. It just appeared. I was driving and then there was water everywhere. I tried to stop, but my car just went in, and there were people down there, dead people. They were trying to grab me, trying to pull me up, but... "I know." I put a hand on his shoulder. "I know. But you're safe now." Chen called for an ambulance. As we waited, I stared at the stretch of highway where the water had been. Completely dry. No evidence it had ever been there, except for the car and the traumatized man, and the knowledge that tomorrow night at 3:17, the drowning road would return, and we'd have 7 minutes to save whoever got caught. 7 minutes before they joined the drowned, 7 minutes before they became one more face in the water, reaching up, trying to help, forever stuck in the moment when the levees broke and New Orleans drowned. I looked at the key Marguerite had given me, still wrapped in its cloth in my pocket. Whatever this was, Whatever curse or echo or punishment the drowning road represented, I was now its keeper. For 7 minutes every night, I'd fight against the dead to save the living. And I'd do it alone because no one else could know. No one else would understand. The drowning road had chosen me, and it wasn't done taking people. For the next 2 weeks, I lived in 7-minute intervals. Every night at 3:17 a.m., I was at mile marker 47, waiting for the water to appear. And it always did, like clockwork, like a curse that couldn't be broken. Some nights there were no cars. The water would simply appear, still and dark, reflecting a sky that wasn't quite right. On those nights I'd stand at the edge and watch the faces. They were always there. Dozens of them, sometimes hundreds, pressing against the surface from below like they were trapped under ice. Other nights, there were victims. Never the same car twice. A pickup truck with a terrified teenager inside. A minivan with a mother and 2 kids. An 18-wheeler whose driver had fallen asleep at the wheel and woke up drowning. Each time, I had 7 minutes to break the window, pull them out, fight against the pressure of all those reaching hands that wanted to help but only knew how to pull down. I saved 11 people in those 2 weeks, but I lost 3. The first was an elderly man who had a heart attack when the water appeared. I got to him in time, broke the window, pulled him halfway out. But his heart had already stopped. The drowned souls took him gently, almost reverently, like they recognized one of their own. The second was a woman who panicked and unlocked her door from the inside. The water rushed in instantly, filling the car in seconds. I dove after her, but the faces, the hands, they were everywhere, pulling her down while trying to push me up. By the time I broke free, she was gone. The third I still have nightmares about. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, in the back seat of her parents' car. I got the parents out first. Had to. They were in the front and I could reach them faster. But when I went back for the girl, I was at 6 minutes and 40 seconds. I shattered the window, reached in, felt her small hand grab mine. At 7 minutes, the water vanished, and she went with it. I can still feel her hand slipping from mine as reality reasserted itself, and the drowning road reclaimed what it thought it was owed. Her name was Sophie Marchand. She was 8 years old. She liked to draw pictures of horses. Her parents moved away 3 days later. They couldn't stand to live in a place where their daughter had been taken by water that shouldn't exist. I couldn't blame them. Chen helped at first, but after the 5th night, after we lost the panicking woman, he stopped coming, said he couldn't handle it anymore. The faces in the water, the cold, the feeling of fighting against people who were trying to help. It broke something in him. He took a transfer to a desk job in Baton Rouge. I didn't blame him either. By the end of week 2, I was alone. Every night at 2:30 a.m., I'd kiss Marie while she slept, leave her a note on the kitchen counter, and drive to mile marker 47. She thought I was dealing with a serial killer, some maniac who struck at the same time every night. I'd let her believe that. It was easier than the truth. On the 15th night, September 27th, there were no cars, just the water, appearing at exactly 3:17, still and waiting. I stood at the edge with my flashlight looking at the faces below. I'd stopped being afraid of them. They weren't monsters. They were victims, trapped in their final moments, trying to save people because they couldn't save themselves. I knelt down, careful not to touch the water, and spoke. "Can you hear me?" The faces shifted, turned toward the sound of my voice. Mouths moved, but no sound came out. "I know you're trying to help. I know you're trying to save people. But you're hurting them. When you pull them down, they drown, just like you did." The faces pressed closer to the surface. I could see details now. A woman with Mardi Gras beads tangled in her hair. A man in a security guard uniform. a teenager with braces, all of them moving their mouths, trying to speak, unable to make sound cross the barrier between their world and mine. I pulled out the key Marguerite had given me, the one from St. Louis Cathedral. I'd researched it. The cathedral had been damaged in Hurricane Katrina, but survived. The key was old, probably from before the storm. But I didn't know what door it opened. "I need to understand," I said to the faces. "I need to know how to help you, how to end this." One face pushed forward from the others. A young man, maybe 25, with a saint's tattoo on his shoulder. I recognized him from the description Marguerite had given me. Marcel Thibodeau. I held up the key. "Your grandmother gave me this. Marguerite, she says she loves you. She says you can rest now." Marcel's face contorted with emotion. His mouth moved, forming words I couldn't hear. But I could read his lips. "Help them, save them. Don't let them drown like we did." "I will, but I need to know what this key opens. What am I supposed to find?" Marcel pointed, his arm breaking the surface of the water. For a moment, I could see his hand clearly, pale and wrinkled from prolonged submersion. He was pointing south toward New Orleans. Then at 3:24, the water vanished, and I was alone on an empty highway. The next morning, I called in sick, told my dispatcher I had the flu and needed a few days. Marie looked worried when I told her I had to go to New Orleans for work, but she didn't question it. She'd learned not to question the strange hours and vague explanations that came with being married to a sheriff. I drove to the city, taking Highway 1 south through all the small towns that lined the bayou. Thibodaux, Raceland, Lockport. Communities that had been devastated by Katrina and had rebuilt slowly, painfully. Some houses still had blue tarps on their roofs 18 years later. Some lots were empty, the foundations of houses that would never be rebuilt. New Orleans was its usual chaotic self. Even on a Wednesday morning, the French Quarter was alive with tourists and street performers. I parked near Jackson Square and walked to St. Louis Cathedral, the white spires rising above the square like they'd been there forever. The cathedral was open. Inside, it was cool and dark, smelling of incense and old wood. I'd been raised Catholic, though I hadn't been to Mass in years. Something about the drowning road had made me question whether God was listening, or if he'd given up on Louisiana after Katrina. A priest was arranging flowers near the altar. He looked up as I approached. "Can I help you, son?" I held up the key. "I'm looking for what this opens." He studied it, then smiled. "Ah, the archive key. Follow me." He led me through a side door and down a narrow staircase. The basement of the cathedral was extensive, rooms filled with records and artifacts dating back centuries. The priest stopped at a heavy wooden door. "This is the flood archive. After Katrina, we collected documentation of everyone who died in the storm. Letters, photographs, personal effects that were recovered. We keep it locked because some of the items are quite valuable, but more importantly, they're sacred. People come looking for closure, for some connection to the loved ones they lost." He gestured to the door. "This key hasn't been used in years. Where did you get it?" "A woman named Marguerite Thibodeau gave it to me. Her grandson, Marcel, died in Katrina." The priest nodded sadly. "I remember Marcel. Good man. Was trying to rescue people from the 9th Ward when his boat capsized. They never recovered his body. His grandmother comes here sometimes to pray for him. He left me alone with the archive. Inside, the room was lined with filing cabinets and boxes, each labeled with a date and location. I found the section for the 9th Ward, August 29th, 2005, and started searching. It took 2 hours, but I found Marcel's file. Inside were photographs of him, his driver's license, letters from his grandmother, and a detailed report of his last known movements. He'd been piloting a small fishing boat, pulling people off roofs and out of attics. Witnesses said he'd saved at least 15 people before the boat overturned at 3:17 a.m. Marcel and 3 others on the boat had drowned, but there was something else in the file. A handwritten note, dated September 2005, 1 month after the storm. It was from Marcel's grandmother. My grandson comes to me in dreams. He says he's still in the water. He says he can hear others calling, all those who drowned at the same moment when the levees broke. He says they're trapped at 3:17, trying to get out, trying to save each other, but the water won't let them go. He begs me to help them find peace, but I don't know how. I've prayed. I've asked the priests. I've consulted the old women who know the ways. They all say the same thing. The water must give them back willingly, or they'll be trapped forever. I sat back, the note trembling in my hands. This had been happening for 18 years. Marguerite had known from the beginning that her grandson and all the others were trapped. She'd been trying to help them for nearly 2 decades. I continued searching through the archive and found more accounts, not just from Katrina but from other floods, other drownings in Louisiana history. The Great Flood of 1927, Hurricane Betsy in 1965. Countless smaller incidents going back centuries, and in many of them there were reports of water appearing where it shouldn't, of drowned souls trying to save others, of 7-minute windows between life and death. Louisiana was built on water. The Mississippi, the bayous, the Gulf, and water remembers. Water keeps what it takes. I found one more document that made everything click into place. A historical record from 1811 during a massive flood. A priest at St. Louis Cathedral had performed an exorcism on the Mississippi River, trying to free the souls of slaves who'd been thrown overboard from a ship. The exorcism had failed, but the priest had noted something important. The water will not release them. It believes it is saving them, protecting them from the cruelties of the world above. And in its mercy, it has made them its guardians. They reach for others who enter the water, not with malice, but with love. Yet love without understanding becomes its own prison. That was it. The water itself was cursed, had been for centuries. It took people who drowned in moments of crisis, in moments when they were trying to help others, and it kept them, preserved them at the moment of their death, convinced it was saving them from something worse. The drowned souls reaching up from below weren't trying to kill anyone. They were trying to rescue them. But they didn't understand they were dead, didn't understand that pulling someone down was the opposite of saving them. I left the cathedral with a plan forming in my mind. If the water believed it was helping, if it thought it was saving people, then I needed to teach it the difference between salvation and drowning. That night, I was back at mile marker 47 with equipment I'd bought in New Orleans. Underwater speakers, waterproof lights, and a recording I'd made of voices saying, "We're safe. We're above water. You saved us. Let us go." At 3:17, the water appeared. I waded in immediately, not waiting for a car to appear. I went straight to where the faces were thickest, where Marcel had been the night before. I held up the speakers and pressed play. The recorded voices echoed through the water. The faces stopped moving, listening. I spoke directly to them. "You saved us, all of you. Every person you pulled from the water, every person you tried to rescue, you saved them. But now they're safe. They're above the water. You don't need to hold on to them anymore." The faces turned toward me. I could see confusion in their expressions, hope mixed with fear. "Marcel," I called out. "Marcel Thibodeau. Your grandmother sent me. She says you saved 15 people. 15 lives because of you. That's enough. You can rest now." Marcel's face appeared in front of me, close enough that I could see every detail. the saint's tattoo on his shoulder, the way his hair floated around his face like seaweed, the look in his eyes that said he was aware, trapped, desperate. He reached up, and this time I didn't pull away. I took his hand. It was cold. So cold it burned. But I held on. Let them go, I said to the water, to whatever consciousness controlled this curse. They saved who they could. They did enough. Let them rest. For a moment, nothing happened. The water stayed still. The faces stayed frozen. Then Marcel's hand began to warm. Color returned to it, life returning to dead flesh. His expression changed from desperation to peace. "Thank you," he mouthed. And then he sank back into the water, disappearing into the darkness below. At 3:24, the water vanished. But this time, something was different. On the highway where the water had been, there was a single object, a saint's jersey, the kind Marcel had been wearing when he drowned. I picked it up. It was dry, clean, like it had never been in water at all. I took it to Marguerite the next morning. She opened her door, took one look at the jersey, and started crying. "He's free?" she asked. "He's free." She held the jersey to her chest and smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Sheriff. You gave my grandson peace." "But the others," I said. "There are hundreds down there. Maybe thousands. How do I free them all?" "You can't. Not all at once. But every night you can free one or two. Talk to them. Remind them they saved people. Remind them they're heroes. The water will let them go if it understands they've fulfilled their purpose." "How long will that take?" "Years, maybe. Decades. But it's better than leaving them trapped forever." She was right. But the thought of spending decades fighting the drowning road, spending every night at 3:17 a.m. pulling people out while slowly freeing the dead, was overwhelming. Marguerite must have seen it on my face. "You're not alone, Sheriff. Others have been doing this work in New Orleans, in Baton Rouge, all along the coast. Wherever Katrina took people, wherever the water remembers. We're all fighting the same fight. Who are you people? We're the ones who remember, the ones who lost someone, the ones who know the water keeps what it loves, and we're working to teach it that love means letting go." Over the next week, I freed 3 more souls. A security guard named Thomas who'd drowned trying to protect a hospital. A mother named Lisa who'd drowned, shielding her children with her body even as the water took her. A boy named Jerome who'd drowned after giving his life jacket to someone else. Each time I spoke to them, told them they'd saved people, told them they were heroes, told them it was okay to rest now. And each time, at 3:24, they disappeared. And something they'd been wearing or carrying appeared on the dry highway. A watch, a necklace, a shoe. Physical proof that they'd been real, that they'd existed, that they mattered. I collected each item and tracked down their families when I could. Most had moved away after Katrina, scattered across the country trying to rebuild their lives. But I found them and gave them closure. Told them their loved ones had saved people. Told them they could be proud. Some believed me, some thought I was crazy. But all of them cried when they held the objects their loved ones had carried into death. On October 7th, 3 weeks after this started, something changed. A car appeared in the water at 3:17, a blue sedan with a man inside, pounding on the window. I waded in, broke the glass, pulled him out. Standard rescue. We made it to shore with 30 seconds to spare. But as I was catching my breath, I saw a face in the water that made my heart stop. My brother, Daniel Boudreau. He'd drowned in Katrina. I'd been there. We'd been trying to rescue people from the 9th Ward together, and a current had taken him. I'd searched for days, weeks. They never found his body. And now he was down there, one of the drowned, trapped at 3:17 a.m., August 29th, 2005. For 18 years. Daniel, I breathed. His face came closer to the surface. He looked exactly as I remembered him. 23 years old, wearing the same saint's cap he'd had on the day he died. His mouth moved, forming words I could barely make out. Ray, save them. Keep saving them. I'm going to save you, I said, wading back into the water. The 7 minutes were almost up, but I didn't care. I'm going to free you. I reached for him, but he pulled back. Not yet. His lips moved clearly now. More need to be saved first. The living. I'll wait. I've waited this long. Daniel, please. At 3:24, the water vanished, and I was left standing on an empty highway, reaching for a brother I couldn't save, screaming into the Louisiana night. That's when I understood the real horror of the drowning road. It wasn't just taking victims. It was showing me everyone I'd failed to save, everyone I'd lost, everyone who was trapped because I hadn't been fast enough, strong enough, good enough. Daniel was down there because I'd let the current take him, and he'd stay down there until I'd somehow made up for that failure by saving everyone else first. It was a test, a punishment, a penance, and I had no idea if I'd ever be able to finish it. After seeing Daniel, I became obsessed. Every day, I researched the drowning road, the history of Katrina, the souls trapped beneath the surface. Every night at 3:17, I was there. Not just to save the living, but to free the dead. To work my way through hundreds of trapped souls until I could finally reach my brother and tell him he could rest. Marie noticed the change in me. How could she not? I was sleeping maybe 3 hours a night. I'd lost 15 pounds. My uniform hung loose on my frame. My eyes had that hollow look you see in soldiers coming back from war. Ray, you need to stop whatever you're doing, she said one morning over coffee. You're killing yourself. I can't stop. People need me. What people? She grabbed my hand, and I noticed how cold mine felt compared to hers. Ray, you've been different since that first night on Highway 1. Chen transferred away. You barely eat. You barely sleep. What's really happening out there? I wanted to tell her. God, I wanted to tell her everything. But how do you explain to your wife that her brother-in-law has been dead for 18 years but isn't really dead? Just trapped in a moment of drowning, reaching up from cursed water that appears every night on a highway that shouldn't flood? I'm trying to save people, I said finally. That's all. Just trying to save people. She studied my face for a long moment. You're trying to save Daniel, aren't you? After all these years, you're still trying to save him. I pulled my hand away. Daniel's dead, Marie. We buried an empty coffin 18 years ago. Did we? Because you look at the water on that highway like you're seeing ghosts, like you're fighting something that no one else can see. Ray, Daniel wouldn't want this. He wouldn't want you destroying yourself. You didn't see him, I said quietly. You didn't see what Katrina did. The people in the water, the ones we couldn't reach. Daniel went under trying to save a little girl from a roof. The current took him, and I just watched. I watched him drown, and I did nothing. You couldn't have saved him. The storm was too strong. The water was too fast. You would have died too. Maybe I should have. Marie started crying, and I knew I'd said the wrong thing, but I couldn't take it back because part of me meant it. Part of me had been drowning since the day Daniel went under. And now, the drowning road was giving me a chance to make it right. Over the next 2 weeks, I developed a system. I'd arrive at mile marker 47 at 2 a.m. with all my equipment. Rope, flotation devices, a pneumatic window breaker, emergency oxygen. I set up lights along the shoulder so I could see better. I timed everything down to the second. From 3:17 to 3:19, I focused on living victims, breaking windows, pulling people out, fighting against the drowned souls who tried to help but only made things worse. From 3:19 to 3:24, I talked to the dead, learned their names, their stories, told them they were heroes, freed them one by one. I got faster, more efficient. On good nights, I could save 2 living victims and free 3 souls. On bad nights, I lost people. The timing would be off, or there'd be too many cars, or the drowned would be too aggressive in their attempts to help. But I was making progress. Marcel was free. The security guard, Thomas, was free. The mother, Lisa, was free. Dozens more. I kept a journal, documenting each person I freed, each object that appeared on the highway at 3:24. I took photos. I tracked down families. Some nights Marguerite would be there. She never said much, just stood at the edge of the water and prayed. But her presence helped. She'd been doing this work long before me, and she'd continue long after I was gone. "You're getting close to him," she said one night in mid-October. "Your brother, I can feel it. The water is testing you, making sure you're worthy. Worthy of what? Of understanding what happened, of accepting that some people can't be saved, can only be freed. I don't accept that." She smiled sadly. "You will. When the time comes, you will." On October 23rd, 4 weeks after this started, I made a mistake. There were 2 cars in the water that night. A pickup truck with a single driver and a sedan with 3 people inside. I broke the window of the pickup first because it was closer. Got the driver out with time to spare. But when I went for the sedan, the water was deeper than usual. Darker. The faces below were more aggressive. I shattered the window and reached for the driver, but one of the drowned souls grabbed my arm. Not to pull me down, but to help me reach the victim. But the grip was too strong, and it pushed me off balance. I fell forward, my head going underwater. For 3 seconds, I was in their world, not floating above it, but submerged in it. And I could hear them. All of them, help them, save them. Don't let them drown. We're drowning. We're still drowning. Please help us. We can't get out. The water won't let us go. We saved so many. We saved so many. Why won't it let us go? The voices were overwhelming. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all overlapping, all desperate. I could feel their hands on me, pulling, pushing, trying to rescue me from a drowning that wasn't happening. My lungs burned, my vision went dark. Then someone yanked me up by my collar. I broke the surface, gasping, and saw Chen. My former deputy had returned, was pulling me back to shore. "I told you to stay away," I coughed out. And I told myself I'd never come back, but I couldn't just leave you out here alone. He looked at the sedan, where 3 people were still trapped. "We've got 90 seconds. Can you do this?" Together we got them out, all 3 with 15 seconds to spare. As the water vanished at 3:24, Chen and I collapsed on the highway, exhausted. "What were you doing under the water?" he asked. "You were under for at least 30 seconds. I was listening. To what?" "The truth. They're not trying to hurt anyone, Chen. They're trying to help. But they don't understand that they're dead. They think they're still in the moment of drowning, still trying to rescue people. And the water thinks it's protecting them by keeping them in that moment forever. That's insane. Is it? Or is it just the natural response of a force that doesn't understand death the way we do? Water preserves. Water keeps. Water remembers. And for the water that drowned 1,800 people in one night, maybe keeping them alive in some form is its way of making amends. Chen looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. "You need to stop, Ray. This is destroying you. I can't stop. My brother's down there." "I know." Marie told me. "But Ray, even if you free every single soul in that water, even if you save every living person who drives into it, it won't bring Daniel back." "Not really. It'll just give you permission to forgive yourself." I don't want forgiveness. I want my brother. Chen stood up, brushing off his uniform. Then you're going to be out here every night for the rest of your life. Because the drowning road doesn't end. It's been happening since Katrina, and it'll keep happening until everyone who drowned that night is freed. And you know how long that'll take? Decades. Maybe centuries. There are people down there who've been trapped so long they don't even remember their names anymore. So what am I supposed to do? Just give up? Number. You're supposed to accept that you can't save everyone. You're supposed to understand that Daniel died a hero, and keeping him trapped in your guilt is worse than letting him go. He left me alone on the highway, driving away into the pre-dawn darkness, but his words stayed with me. That night, I freed a woman named Catherine. She'd drowned protecting her grandchildren, holding them above water until rescue came. When I told her they'd survived, that they were grown now with children of their own, she smiled. At 3:24, a locket appeared on the highway. Inside was a photo of 2 young children. I tracked down her family. One of the grandchildren, now 40 years old, cried when I gave her the locket. She said she'd been haunted for 18 years by the image of her grandmother holding her above the water, slowly sinking. Now she had proof her grandmother had succeeded. Proof that the sacrifice meant something. That's when I understood what Chen had been trying to tell me. This wasn't about erasing the past. It was about giving meaning to the sacrifice, letting the dead know their deaths mattered. On Halloween night, October 31st, I freed the most souls in a single night I'd ever managed. 7 of them. I learned their names, their stories. I told each one they were heroes. And at 3:24, 7 objects appeared on the highway. I collected them all, carefully labeling them for the families I'd track down later. As I was packing up, I saw him, Daniel, closer to the surface than he'd ever been before. His face was clear, distinct. He was looking right at me. I waded into the water, even though the 7 minutes were over. The water didn't vanish. It stayed, waiting. "Daniel," I said, "I'm almost there. Just a few more souls, and I can reach you. I can free you." He shook his head slowly. "Not yet, Ray. There's one more you need to free first." "Who?" "Yourself." Before I could respond, he sank back into the darkness. The water remained for another moment, then disappeared, leaving me standing on the dry highway. That's when I realized the truth. The drowning road wasn't just keeping Daniel, it was keeping me. Every night I came here, every soul I freed, I was binding myself more tightly to this curse. I was becoming one of them, not drowned, but trapped, stuck in a moment of guilt and grief that I couldn't escape. The water was teaching me what it had learned, that holding on to people, even with love, even with the best intentions, was its own kind of drowning. I had to choose. Keep fighting the drowning road until it consumed me completely, or let go of Daniel and accept that some people couldn't be saved, only remembered. I drove home as the sun rose over the flat Louisiana landscape. Marie was awake, sitting at the kitchen table with coffee and my journal, the one where I'd documented every soul I'd freed. She'd read it all. "Ray, this is what you've been doing? Talking to ghosts? Freeing dead people?" I nodded, too tired to lie anymore. "And Daniel, he's really down there? He's there, trapped, waiting for me to save him." Marie closed the journal. "Ray, you can't save him. You know that, right? He's been dead for 18 years. Whatever's in that water, it's not really Daniel anymore. It's just an echo, a memory. It's still him. I can free him like I freed the others." "And then what? You'll be free too?" She grabbed my hands. "Ray, you're not trapped in the water. You're trapped in your guilt. And until you forgive yourself for not saving Daniel, no amount of drowning souls you free is going to matter." She was right. Chen had been right. Even Marguerite, in her own way, had been trying to tell me the same thing. The drowning road wasn't my punishment. I was punishing myself. That night, November 1st, All Saints' Day, I went to mile marker 47 for what I decided would be the last time. At 3:17, the water appeared. But this time, I didn't wade in to fight it. I stood at the edge and waited. Daniel appeared almost immediately, his face pressing against the surface. "I can't save you," I said, "not the way I want to. Not by pulling you out and bringing you home, but I can free you. I can tell you that you died a hero, that you saved that little girl, that your death meant something." "I know," Daniel said, and I could hear him clearly for the first time. His voice echoed across the water. "I've always known, but you didn't. You needed to learn that saving people doesn't always mean bringing them back. Sometimes it means letting them go." The water around him began to shimmer. Light was breaking through from below, warm and golden. "The others you freed, they taught the water what salvation really means. And now it understands. Now it's ready to let us all go. But only if you're ready to let us go too." "I'm ready," I whispered. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you, Daniel. I'm sorry I let the current take you. You didn't let anything happen, Ray. The storm took me, and I died doing what mattered. That's all anyone can ask for." At 3:24, the water didn't just vanish. It drained away, slowly, gently, like a tide going out. And as it receded, hundreds of objects appeared on the highway. Clothes, jewelry, photos, all the physical remnants of the souls who'd been trapped, including Daniel's saint's cap. I picked it up, held it to my chest, and finally let myself cry. For my brother. For all the people the storm had taken. For 18 years of guilt I'd carried like stones in my pockets. The next night, 3:17 came and went. The water didn't appear. The drowning road was finished. The souls were free, and so was I. 2 weeks passed without the water appearing. I went to mile marker 47 every night at 3:17, just to be sure. But the highway stayed dry. The curse was broken. The souls were free. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt empty. For 6 weeks, my entire life had revolved around those 7 minutes. Fighting the water, freeing the dead, searching for redemption. Now that it was over, I didn't know what to do with myself. Marie tried to help. She made my favorite meals, organized a weekend trip to visit her family in Lafayette, suggested I take some real time off, but I couldn't settle. Every night at 3:17, I'd wake up with the feeling that I was supposed to be somewhere, doing something important. Chen checked in with me twice. Both times he asked the same question. "Are you okay?" Both times I lied and said yes. On November 15th, I got a call from Marguerite. "Sheriff Boudreaux, you need to come see me. It's important." I drove to her house, a small cottage in Thibodaux surrounded by live oaks dripping with Spanish moss. She was waiting on the porch with coffee and beignets. "The water is gone," she said as I sat down. "You freed them all, even Marcel. I felt it the moment he left, like a weight lifting off my heart." "That's good. That's what we wanted." She studied me with those sharp old eyes. "Then why do you look so sad, Sheriff? You accomplished what no one else could. You ended a curse that's been running for 18 years. You should be proud. I don't feel proud. I feel like I lost something. You lost your purpose. For 6 weeks, you knew exactly what you were supposed to do. Save the living, free the dead. Now that's over, and you have to figure out what comes next." She was right, but that didn't make it easier. "Let me tell you something, Sheriff. The drowning road isn't gone, not completely. The curse is broken, yes. The souls are free. But the memory remains. The water remembers what happened. And once every year, on August 29th at 3:17 a.m., the water will return. Not to trap people, but to remember, to honor those who drowned. It will appear for 7 minutes, and anyone who stands at the edge can speak to the memory of the lost. It's not a curse anymore. It's a memorial. That's why you're here? To tell me the water's coming back? Number. I'm here to tell you what you need to do next. She handed me an envelope. This is a list of other places, other roads where water remembers, where souls are trapped. Louisiana is full of them, Sheriff. The drowning road on Highway 1 isn't the only one. It's just the one that chose you. I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten list of locations across Louisiana. Highway 90 near Morgan City, where a bus full of schoolchildren had driven into a flooded ditch during Hurricane Audrey in 1957. The Industrial Canal in New Orleans, where a barge had collided with a bridge during Katrina, trapping workers underwater. A bridge in Lake Charles that had collapsed during Hurricane Laura in 2020. Each location had a time listed, times when the water appeared, times when the trapped souls reached up, trying to save people who didn't need saving. You want me to go to all these places? Not just you. There are others. People like you who've lost someone. People who understand what it means to be trapped between life and death. We're forming a network. Guardians of the memory roads. We can't save everyone, Sheriff. But we can free the ones who are ready, and we can make sure no one else gets trapped. How many are there? How many cursed roads? In Louisiana alone? Dozens. Maybe more. Across the Gulf Coast? Hundreds. Katrina wasn't the only disaster that left souls behind. Every major flood, every hurricane, every tragedy where people drowned trying to help each other. The water remembers all of them. That's impossible. One person can't handle all of that. You're right, one person can't. But 100 people can. 1,000 people can. We're recruiting, Sheriff. People who understand. People who've seen the faces in the water. Will you join us? I looked at the list. Each location represented dozens or hundreds of trapped souls. People who'd died heroically, trying to save others, and ended up cursed for their kindness. The scope of it was overwhelming. But I thought about Daniel, about how lost he'd been in that water, how desperate to help but unable to understand he was causing harm. I thought about Marcel and Thomas and Lisa and Catherine and all the others I'd freed. I thought about Sophie Marchand, the 8-year-old girl whose hand had slipped from mine, who was still out there somewhere, trapped in a moment of drowning. I'm in, I said. Tell me where to start. Marguerite smiled. I knew you would be. Your brother would be proud. That night, I told Marie everything. Sat her down at the kitchen table and explained the drowning road, the trapped souls, Daniel, the network of memory roads across Louisiana. I expected her to think I was insane. Instead, she just nodded. I knew it was something like that. When you came home with that saint's cap, Daniel's cap, I knew. She took my hand. Ray, I can't pretend to understand all of this. Cursed water, trapped souls, it sounds like something from a horror movie. But I know you. I know you wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't real. So, if this is what you need to do, then do it. But don't shut me out. Let me help. How can you help? I'm a nurse. I understand trauma. I understand helping people through their worst moments. Maybe I can't wade into cursed water and fight ghosts. But I can support the families of the people you free. Give them counseling. Help them process what happened. You're saving the dead, Ray. Let me help save the living. I'd never loved her more than I did in that moment. On November 20th, I attended my first meeting of what Marguerite called the Memory Keepers. It was held in the basement of a church in New Orleans, and there were 37 people there. All of them had lost someone to Katrina or other floods. All of them had encountered cursed water, had seen the faces below, had heard the desperate voices trying to save people who didn't need saving. Marguerite stood at the front of the room. "Thank you all for coming. I know this isn't easy." Accepting that the people we lost are still out there in some form, still trapped, still suffering. But we have the power to free them, and more importantly, we have the responsibility. She introduced me to the group, told them about Highway 1, about the drowning road, about how I'd freed over 50 souls in 6 weeks. The others listened with a mixture of hope and grief. A woman named Elise stood up. "My husband drowned trying to save our neighbors during Katrina. I see him sometimes on Highway 90, just his face in the water, but I don't know how to free him. I don't know what to say." "You tell him the truth," I said. "You tell him he saved people. You tell him his sacrifice mattered, and you tell him it's okay to rest now. The water will listen. It's learned what salvation really means." Over the next hour, we shared stories. Each person in that room had encountered cursed water. Each had tried to help the trapped souls, and each had failed because they didn't understand what the water wanted. But now we understood. The water didn't want violence. It didn't want exorcisms or draining or destruction. It wanted acknowledgement. It wanted the souls it held to be honored, remembered, and then released. "We're not fighting the water," Marguerite said. "We're teaching it that holding on to people, even with love, is its own kind of drowning. And slowly, location by location, soul by soul, we're breaking these curses." They gave me a new assignment. Highway 90 near Morgan City, where the school bus had drowned during Hurricane Audrey in 1957. 43 children and their bus driver, all trapped for 66 years. The water appeared every night at 2:33 a.m., the time the bus went into the ditch. No one had been able to free them because no one understood what they needed to hear. I started going there the next week. Every night at 2:33 the water would appear. A 50-foot stretch of highway would flood instantly, and in the middle of it, the school bus would be visible under the surface. I could see the children inside, their faces pressed against the windows. The first night, I just watched, studied the pattern. The water appeared at 2:33 and vanished at 2:40. 7 minutes, just like Highway 1. The children were reaching up, trying to help each other, trying to save anyone who came near. But they were 66 years old now. They'd been trapped longer than they'd been alive. The second night, I waded in, spoke to them through the water, told them that people remembered them, told them there was a memorial in Morgan City with all their names, told them their families had mourned them, loved them, never forgotten them. The third night, I brought photographs, pictures of the memorial, of the families who still laid flowers there every year. I held them up to the bus windows so the children could see. The fourth night, the oldest child, a girl named Emma, who'd been 14 when she drowned, pressed her hand against the window. I pressed mine against the other side. "Did we save them?" she asked, and I could hear her voice clearly. "The other children, did we save them?" I'd researched the accident. 3 children had survived. They'd been pulled from the bus before it completely submerged. Emma had been holding them above water, keeping them safe until rescue arrived. "Yes," I said, 3 children survived because of you. You saved them, Emma. You and the others, you were heroes. Then why are we still here? Why can't we go home? Because the water thought it was protecting you. But it's learned now. It knows that saving people means letting them go home. And you can go home now, Emma. All of you can. At 2:40, the water began to drain. But unlike Highway 1, this wasn't instant. The water receded slowly, and as it did, the children began to appear. Not as corpses, but as light. 43 points of light rising from the bus, hovering for a moment above the highway, then drifting up into the night sky. When the water was completely gone, 43 objects remained on the highway. School books, lunch boxes, a baseball glove, a hair ribbon, all the things the children had been carrying the day they died. I collected them all. Over the next month, I tracked down the families. Most of the parents were long dead, but I found siblings, children, grandchildren. I gave them the objects and told them the truth. Their loved ones had died heroes, had saved others, had finally been freed from the curse that held them. The pattern repeated at every location. The industrial canal, where I freed 17 workers who'd drowned during Katrina. A bridge in Lake Charles, where I freed 8 people who'd drowned during Hurricane Laura. A flooded street in Baton Rouge, where I freed a family of 5 who'd drowned during the Great Flood of 2016. Each time, the process was the same. Learn their names, learn their stories, tell them they were heroes, give them permission to rest. And each time, at the moment the water drained away, something physical remained. Proof they'd existed. Proof they'd mattered. By February 2024, 4 months after Highway 1, I'd freed over 200 souls across Louisiana. The network of memory keepers had grown to over 100 people. We had a website, a database of cursed locations, protocols for approaching the water safely. Marie's counseling practice had evolved to specifically help families of the freed souls. She worked with them to process the grief, the relief, the strange mixture of emotions that came from knowing their loved ones had been trapped for years or decades and were now finally at peace. Chen even came back, took a position as my deputy again, specializing in what we called unusual environmental incidents. Translation: cursed water. He'd overcome his fear and was now one of our best field agents. On August 29, 2024, the 1-year anniversary of when I first encountered the drowning road, I returned to mile marker 47. Marguerite had been right. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the water appeared, but this time there were no trapped souls, no faces reaching up, just clear, still water reflecting the stars. I stood at the edge and for 7 minutes I remembered. Marcel, Thomas, Lisa, Catherine, Daniel, all the souls I'd freed, all the people who died trying to save others and ended up trapped by their own heroism. At 3:24, the water began to drain, and as it did, I saw something I'd never seen before. Words formed on the surface, written in ripples and reflected light. Thank you, the water was thanking me, or maybe the souls were. Or maybe it was just my imagination, seeing meaning where there was only coincidence. But I chose to believe it was real, because after everything I'd seen, after all the impossible things I'd witnessed, believing in gratitude from cursed water wasn't the strangest thing in the world. I drove home as the sun rose, feeling lighter than I had in years. The work wasn't finished. There were still dozens of cursed locations in Louisiana, hundreds across the Gulf Coast, thousands probably across the world. Anywhere people had drowned trying to help others, anywhere water had decided to keep what it loved. But we were making progress. Soul by soul, location by location, we were breaking the curses. Teaching the water that love meant letting go. Teaching the trapped that their sacrifices mattered. When I got home, Marie was awake, making coffee. "How was it?" she asked. The water came back. "Just to remember. No souls, no curse, just memory." "Good." She handed me a cup. "Ray, I got a call last night. From a woman in Mississippi. She says there's a bridge over the Pearl River where her daughter drowned in 2005. Says the water appears every night at midnight. Says she can see her daughter reaching up, trying to save people." I took the coffee, feeling the familiar weight of purpose settling back onto my shoulders. "When does she want me to come?" "This weekend if you can. I'll be there. Because that's what I did now, that's what I was. Not just a sheriff protecting the living, but a guardian of the memory roads. Freeing the dead, teaching the water. Making sure that people who died as heroes didn't spend eternity trapped in their final moment. It wasn't the life I'd imagined when I became a cop, but it was the life I'd been given. And after everything I'd seen, everything I'd learned, I understood that some curses were really just love that didn't know how to let go. And my job was to teach it, one soul at a time, one memory road at a time, for as long as the water remembered. For as long as the drowned needed someone to tell them it was okay to rest. I was Sheriff Ray Boudreau, guardian of the drowning roads, keeper of the 7-minute war, and I would fight that war until every trapped soul was free. Or until the water finally took me too. But that was a story for another night. If you're from Louisiana, if you've ever driven these highways late at night, if you've ever seen water where it shouldn't be, you know what I'm talking about. The drowning roads are real. The trapped souls are real. And someone has to remember them. Someone has to set them free. Hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more stories about the memory roads. Drop a comment telling me if you've ever encountered cursed water, if you've ever seen faces reaching up from impossible depths. Because if you have, you're not crazy. You're just seeing what most people refuse to believe. The water remembers. The water keeps. The water loves. And sometimes love is the cruelest curse of all. This is Sheriff Ray Boudreau, signing off from Louisiana, where the dead don't stay buried and the drowned don't stay down. Stay safe out there, and if you ever see water on a highway that shouldn't flood, don't stop. Don't try to help. Just drive through and pray you make it to the other side. Because once the drowning road claims you, the only way out is through someone like me. And there aren't enough of us to save everyone. Not yet. But we're trying. God knows we're trying.